Chapter 8, Strategic Operations. So strategic policing defines. Strategic policing is built upon the interrelated elements, a shared sense of direction, creativity, commitment, accountability. Strategically, managing organizations have shared a sense of direction present throughout the organization. The organization's vision and mission statements, values, operational objectives, and performance define this direction. So as you can see, it's a well laid out strategy. So we have five basic steps: external analysis, internal analysis, strategy for formulation, strategy execution, and strategy control. Community-oriented policing attempts to increase the interaction between police and the community through a process of collaboration, consultation, leading to a partnership between the police and the community residents. The community is recognized as a required crucial partner, participant in the production of the public safety. COP features community-oriented policing features the process, the provision of identifiable officers who know their assigned patrol area and its residents. These officers who develop a sense of territorial responsibility for the patrol beat and partnership with its residents. Due to their close collaboration, officers can truly relate to the communities they serve and better understand and identify local problems. Cops assumes that the citizens will partner with the police and take a proactive role and help the police set and implement strategies. Citizens have input into the determination of police priorities. As a result, every community should be policed in accordance with neighborhood needs and values. This decentralization process also seeks to give the line officer a greater role in decision making and be more humane due to input sought from community members and line officers. Officers are viewed as intelligence agents able to react to citizen concerns. The ultimate goal is for the police and the community to solve problems before they become crimes. So in essence, when you have this community policing, you have the officers, they become part of the community. The people know them, they know them, and they know the people. They'll know the grandmother, the daughter, and the grandson. And what happens is they develop a relationship, and it's I call it the human factor. Now they know each other as people, not just a police officer and not just as citizens, but as people. And they have a lot of autonomy because every community needs to be policed differently. So what's done in one community won't work in the other. So this is why you let the police officers in the communities have a lot of input and a lot of decision-making process and let you know how things go versus just having management just arbitrarily making decisions about where they are and what they do. Implementing community policing. So we're going to see some strengths here. Effective in reducing fear, results in more positive view of the police, increase in job satisfaction, motivation, and broadening the police role. And there's a few others. Now you see weaknesses here. Needs to extensively train officers and citizens. Resistance from middle management and line officers. Perception of cop as soft policing or not real police work. Must be more than just a specialized unit. Requires a working relationship with the community. So when you see this, we definitely see what the strengths are. When you look at the weaknesses, a lot of this is based on your people. Either they're pushing back, and what you find is sometimes that some of them have this. Well, the police, we need to be tough on people. We need to be tough on crime. We need to use a heavy-handed approach. And realistically, when that's not needed, they still want to operate that way. So they will push back against community policing, thinking it is too soft. We're too easy on them. We're not doing our jobs. And that's when you can have some issues there. And then you have to address your personnel. You have to address your personnel in management, middle level management, because they will have a lot of hands-on with the people who are actually doing this, and also the officers. You got to get the right people in the right places. Effectiveness of community policing. The National Research Council found that community policing lowers the fear of crime in communities when the level of interaction between citizens and officers is increased. So that is a fact. Where you have that, people have it lessens their fear about it. The reduction of the fear of crime was not evident across all socioeconomic groups. The research also determined that police evidence respect towards citizens, they were more likely to obtain compliance from their requests. So when you respect people, or they think you respect them, they're more likely to comply. Now in Chicago, they found that African Americans were more involved in the community policing. Their neighborhoods benefit from it most. White residents did not see the need at all. Latino communities suffered from a lack of participation due to language and economic barriers. Latino households were too involved in work to take part. So you do see some barriers right there. When you have people who don't speak English as their first language, immigrants, and cultural differences, depending upon where you are. But you have to have people who are able to make those adjustments based on where they're working and who they're working with. Chicago residents in areas served the program had higher opinions of the ability of the police. The impact crime rates, cop departments should engage in multiple community policing. So again, when you look at the inner cities and when you had those kind of relationships with the police officers, community policing, they had better, it had stats to show you it's better all the way around. Okay, problem-oriented policing. Okay, this is when you're dealing with a specific problem and not widespread problems. The heart of this process is SARA model. So SARA is an acronym, stands for Scanning, Analysis, Response, and Assessment. Identify recurring problems and how they affect community safety. Analysis, determine the causes of it. Response, seeking out, selecting, and implementing activities to solve that problem. So realistically, pinpointing where that problem is. Assessment, determine if the response was effective or identify new strategies. So when you identify who is the problem or what is the problem is, then you do analysis. Well, first of all, you scan to find problems. Then you do analysis to determine what type of problems you have. And I'll give you an example. What if you have a problem or a person or a problem that's causing multiple problems and issues? That's what they mean by analysis, and to try to get to the root cause, not the symptom. The response, seeking out, selecting, and implementing activities to solve. So now we come up with some type of investigative strategy to go after that. Now, assess to figure out, did it work? There is some evidence that the SAR model has not led to innovative or imaginative responses by the police. Some initiatives flowed from observations and complaints rather than data analysis or sophisticated scanning process. Analysis was informal and limited, originating from small-scale reactive incident-oriented problem-solving approaches. So when you look at ineffective, you need to look at effective POP implementation requires accurate problem identification, consistent record keeping to evaluate and assessment of the responses to the problems. So in essence, when you do in other words, this type of stuff is successful when you do a lot of work up front. That's the head work, I call it. That's the head work, intelligence, analysis, to make sure first of all, that you identify the right problem, that you came up with the right type of solution to deal with it, and that you actually got results from that solution that you proposed. The effectiveness, a systematic analysis of POP research determined that POP had an overall modest but statistical significant impact upon crime and disorder. The overall percentage crime and change in disorder recorded by studies was over 44%. So when you're pinpointing that problem and you go after it, you can get good results. Hotspot policing. A hotspot is defined as a small geographical location where the rates of crime per square foot is higher than that of other areas surrounding it. The hotspot is a useful way to determine where police should focus their efforts to solve a crime problem. This tactic represents a shift from person-based policing to place-based policing. Crime hotspots are examined to determine the day of the week, time, day, hours when crime calls are concentrated. Hotspot policing analysis considers such variables as facilities, site features, offender mobility, target location. So when you have this is target type policing, and it is a hotspot. And when you target this, you don't target people. You're actually targeting an area or a location. And you determine that the crime is high in there. Once you determine that, then you go into the area to figure out what's the causes of the crime. identify that. And then you come up with strategies, try to deal with it. Of course, you have to take into consideration the facilities, bars, churches, apartments. Some things you may not be able to do because you might be too close to schools, some type of operations or whatever else. So you have to take in that. Offender mobility. Is it a situation where, you look at offenders influencing targets, selection by offenders, gender, race, age, experience, crime? What type of crime, what type of criminals do you have in there? Who are they? Effectiveness of hotspot policing is the review of 9 prominent studies of hotspot policing published in 1989-99 determined that the noteworthy crime reductions were reported in 7 of these. Rather than a displacement of crime, there was a diffusion of the crime control benefit. The diffusion of the benefits result has been confirmed by several studies on hotspot. So another thing, what some people might say is what some people would think when you do hotspot targeting of an area, well, what the criminals do, they just pick up and they'll go somewhere else. That's not usually the case. And that's what they found out here. That is not usually the case. And you can round them up or whatever else, but they will stay there. And a lot of times these operations are covert too, so they don't know they're going on. And here's some examples that you can read on your own about hotspot locations. Issues in hotspot policing. Dosage. How long should the police control the hotspot? The Copeland's curve. The research showed that police stops were most effective when they were 13 to 15 minutes long. The impact deteriorated after that point, and the patrols must be of some quality, not just driving by. In Sacramento, California, research shows results that 15-minute randomized visits to hotspots significantly reduce Part 1 crimes and calls for service. Well, so realistically, when you're doing this type of policing, it's really, if you think of it, I hate to use this term, but it's true. It's a quick way of doing things. And I don't mean it in a bad way. It's not designed for you to have stops and last 45 minutes per stop. Like they said, they were most effective when they were 13 to 15 minutes long. And in some cases, doing drive-bys and stuff, 15-minute randomized stop spots was also effective. What operational methods utilized? In Philadelphia, research indicated that defender-focused tactics had a pronounced effect upon crime, 42% for violent, 50% overall for felonies, again with a noted diffusion of benefits, while problem-oriented and foot patrol approaches failed to achieve such results. Also, these approaches were viewed by residents as procedural just because they focused on the right people. So again, when you had these types of things, they were not long and drawn out, but they were targeted, and they're able to do stuff that the other officers can't do. One of the things I can tell you is when I've seen hotspot targeting, a lot of it is covert, meaning it might be undercover. They don't know police out there. They know the regular police officer who's out there, so they know when they walk off, when they drive off. What they don't know is the police officers who are in plain clothes and plain cars who are in the area after the other officers leave, or who are the confidential informants working out there who are letting them know stuff. So it does work. What is the effect of hotspot policing method on community residents? So you see what the effect was in Jersey City. The fear of crime expressed by citizens increased, even though crackdowns had lowered the crime rate. The increased presence of police in the area negatively impacted residents' perception of safety. So you can have something where it actually does not work necessarily where you thought it would. And a lot of times it might end up being the type of people who you have in that community. That they may just have I've seen it before where you have like immigrants who come from countries where the only type of police they knew were corrupt. So they have a mistrust of law enforcement in general. So more of a police presence makes them more uncomfortable. Which patrolling strategy is most effective in policing hotspots? In Jacksonville, Florida, problem-solving intervention was associated with 33% reduction in violent crime. No statistical significance differences were registered for property and other violent crimes, but they were also declining in the problem-solving intervention areas. So they do work in some areas, in some areas they don't, but you have to find out why. The police must do more, cops on the dots, and create strategies that can change conditions in hotspots location. So police need to do more and look at this and realize that when you do this type of policing, it's not something that's designed, it's targeted, it's for a short period of time. It's not designed to be anything long and drawn out and heavy handed. And also, like people say, realistically, you get a chance to target the right people. And that's the meat of it right there. We go into this area to identify who's causing the problems and target them and leave everybody else alone. And citizens do like that. CompStat. CompStat is something that is in law enforcement. Like, you got people who love it and you got people who hate it. It was designed by NYPD Commissioner Brad Bratton years ago. And when he designed it, it might have been in the 90s, I'm not sure, I think. But when they designed this, it was a way of holding their leaders in the police organization or the police department accountable. And by holding them accountable, they will hold their police officers accountable to their areas, the areas of responsibilities. Meetings held, precinct commanders and the officers accountable for crime rates. So they would come in weekly meetings where they would come in and talk about their crime rates to try to stay on track to see what was trending, what was going down, and what was spiking. And so I'm going to sum this up for you in essence with the CompStat. So police officers, they will come into the precinct once a week to meet with the command staff. And when they meet with the command staff all the way up to the chief of police, they tell them, which the command staff already knows what their stats are. Just so you have a district where you have a captain who comes in and he's reporting on his crime. And he says, my robberies have gone up 10%. My assaults have gone up 5%. My rapes are down 5%. So what CompStat does, the command staff, what you do, they want to know, what are you doing about the robberies and the assaults? Because they're up. Obviously, what you did on the rapes, things are down. So whatever you're doing out there, keep doing. So what are you doing to bring these other two down, the robberies and assaults? So then the captain tells them where they're happening, what he knows about it, and what his plan is to do something about it. So the next week he comes back in, they want to hear the stats again, and they're like, okay, tell us about your robberies and assaults that were up last week. Then what this person, the captain, does then is says, okay, they were up 10%, they were up. My robberies up 10%, my assaults are up 5%. Now my robberies are down to 5%. My assaults are down to 1%. So whatever he did worked. Now, if it didn't work, let's say his robberies went up and his assault stats went up. Now the command staff wants to know why that happened. And that captain has to try to explain that. So that's the essence of what CompStat is. So when we look at intelligence-led policing is defined as law enforcement operational strategy that sought to reduce crime through the combined use of crime analysis, criminal intelligence in order to determine crime reduction tactics that concentrate on the enforcement and prevention of criminal offender activity with a focus on active and recidivist offenders. Recidivists are repeat offenders. A management philosophy in business. So this is a management philosophy. So basically, intelligence-led policing is to take advantage of stats and intelligence and data and allow it to determine how you police, what you do, and where you police. Focused deterrence. So a strategy directed at one problem, aimed at stopping the violence associated with illegal drug trade. It is, and that's the one problem in this example here, it is also based on criminological truth. Most serious crime is committed by repeat offenders who often are gang members. So that's the thing about, it's not just crime. You normally have what we refer to as career criminals. That's what they do for a living. So when you look at serious and violent crime, a lot of times it's career offenders. This is why when you have a focused deterrent, those are the ones that you want to focus on. This approach applies a variety of levers that select a target group of offenders, announcement of potential heavy and swift enforcement ahead of time in group, showing offenders that they are under police surveillance and showing the prison terms given to the convicted peers while asserting the necessity of punishment that is immediate and forthcoming through the use of federal enforcement and sentencing. Important aspect is the resource delivery stage that makes communities resources available to offenders so that they have alternates to crime. So what you do here is these people will actually, a lot of times they're on probation. The probation officers will require them to report to a location. When they report there, law enforcement agencies will be there, representatives will be there, and they will let these people know that they're aware of who they are and what they've been doing. And they basically tell them, if you continue to commit crime, we're watching you and we're going to get you. And when we get you, we're going to use the federal sentencing guidelines to send you away for a long time. Now, you also have community leaders there with programs and stuff to talk to them and help them as well. If you want to change your life, if you want to get off drugs, if you want to stop making a living as a criminal, these people over here you can talk to with these various agencies. They will help you. So that's focused deterrent, and it's a program that it has been somewhat successful in several parts of the country. Effectiveness, Cincinnati. So this is again talking about the one in High Point, North Carolina. Evaluation of the drug market policing strategy in the city found a statistical significant reduction in violent crime within the targeted neighborhoods compared to other High Point neighborhoods, although the violent crime rate actually increased after the interventions were implemented. So you'll see where you have somebody, you can have a mixed bag or whatever, but at the end of the day, there are places where it does actually work. And here again, this is talking about the mixed results. And the things that we won't get into is the mixed results, because there's a lot of variables involved in that. Who's doing it? Basically, law enforcement agent, who's doing it? Are you doing it the right way? What type of crimes do you have? How do you investigate them? So there are a lot of moving parts to that. And you can see that it's tried in different parts of the country. So elements of effective force deterrence programs when it's done right. Significant teaching on building strong partnerships with other components of criminal justice systems and agencies. So you really have a coalition of agencies, federal, state, and local law enforcement, to include federal and state and local prosecutors. Communities have established regular process for analyzing crime, feeding crime information to officers. So again, working with the communities. The communities feel like they're working with you, not that you're out there trying to suppress or oppress them. You have the decentralized functions within these agencies, where you have people who are actually targeting and working in this area. Clear leadership in each jurisdiction. So when you have these agencies working together, everybody knows what they're supposed to do. Everybody knows what their capabilities are. But you work together as a team, to include with probation. So when we look at smart policing, predictive policing, you got several strategies together. Go build evidence-based, data-driven law enforcement tactics and strategies that are effective, efficient, and economical. Features: methods for identifying locations with an increased risk of crime, methods for identifying individuals at risk for future offending, methods to match likely offenders with specific past crime, methods for predicting victims of crime. So when you look at smart policing, you're taking all these things in consideration. And because a lot of times you're working with multiple agencies, law enforcement agencies, to include probation, you basically bring all your information together and you share it with each other so that you can answer these questions or these things right here in 1 through 4. Strategies promoted by smart policing: targeting persistent gun violence hotspots, targeting prolific offenders in persistent hotspots, employing new strategies, advanced crime analysis, engaging a wide range of collaborative partners, conducting advanced problem analysis. So when you're working together with different law enforcement agencies, you bring all your resources together. And I'm gonna be honest with you, it's really about targeting in the hotspots. It's really about targeting areas and then targeting the sources of the problems in those areas. And then that's when it gets to become people oriented. And now this is where you're looking at all the information that all your partners bring together to go about coming up with strategy to deal with it. Effective is smart policing. So here's some more examples that you can read through on your own. So, conclusion. How do these strategies compare and how do they differ? They use information to develop strategy and tactics to guide operations and meet the true purpose of policing: to prevent and respond to crime. They are proactive approaches that focus on both people and places. They feature tailored problem-oriented interventions and deployments that are focused in a specific way. They follow up to evaluate and assess the effectiveness of the operations. They seek to support of and input of the community. They hold police accountable for their performance. So this is what I refer to as proactive policing. Trying to come together as law enforcement agencies working together, partner, and then partner with the community, utilizing the input and resources of the community, their eyes and ears, and the resources of the agencies, and come together to actually reduce crime in the communities. And also there's a mechanism to hold law enforcement officers accountable, each agency and each officer. That concludes this chapter.